The Long Way Home Supplemental, a small repayment. It is said that it is funny to command the winds. It is said also that one's tent must stand in despite the sands and winds. Isis Magdalene was in whipping winds and shifting sands indeed, taken by courtiers, taken because her people and leaders had greater pride than wisdom, and were ashamed to ask for aid. Her friends, her closest friends, had suffered a most terrible fate. Still, her dreams were troubled by their loss. Still, her heart felt the icy fingers of fear clawing at what little courage she had gathered among these new friends. It had been, and still was, a journey through strangeness, confronted by the blood of the breakers of chains. She learned that such blood coursed in the veins of a person rather than a legend, and knew upon sight of him that he shall never break his word once given, and thus he did vow that their foe shall never take her again. She had learned, later of course, that he had likewise vowed to get everybody home safely, and this she too believed. To have broken her chains, laid her fallen prince to rest, and sworn oath to protect her was lofty things indeed. And yet Jason George, the keeper of oaths, was still as much as mortal as herself. And yet still, there was also the seeker of paths, Vincent Phoebus, to consider. He had no such oaths of vows. However, the man strode across the stars to find what was lost to others, never sparing a thought to himself. Isis Magdalene could see him shine each time she looked upon him, short of speech and gruff in word, true. But this was belied by this tenderness indeed. She had even told the man that she was meagre in courage, and contended not against the courtiers. Yet he offered merely words of mighty wisdom, and shared of her grief. How could one such as she repay such debts to giants such as they? Her debts ended not there, for their companions were also mighty in courage and wisdom. The wayfinder Trundre showed her might in patience and understanding. With kind words, she explained the insults that she did not intend to offer to the Long Way. More, she, with her own hands, made such gifts only the truly wise could craft. The handheld sewing machine that Isis Magdalene made such good use of. More, the hearth-maker Vi gave her warmth with no hesitation or reservation. Though younger than Isis Magdalene and ignorant of her people's ways, the younger girl gave comfort in her own way. Truly, she was another mighty in courage. The name-maker, called now Cadet, was sharp of eye and mighty of talent for the dance of ships, and had saved the lives of all aboard the Long Way, with his might more than once. But more, he too accepted her. The name-maker was slow to make friends, but all the more fierce in his mighty love for that. Never before could Isis Magdalene have imagined to be blessed so. All her life she had been taught and trained to lead, to strive, to be solid for her charges beneath her. Those not born of noble house or risen by noble character would look to her in times of crisis for wisdom, for courage, for temperance, for solid rock in the shifting sands. But these mighty friends needed none of these things from her. Yet they made no demands of her whatsoever. How could one such as she repay such debts to mighty friends such as they? One mustn't forget the Long Way herself, of course. Isis Magdalene had heard it said that the Terrans and the Starsailors both hold that ships live and have souls. Being one who had no desire to travel, she had not believed it to be true while she lived at the academy. She had not realized that she had come to believe that the Long Way was alive until she perished in battle with these new courtiers. She did not weep as Vincent, Jason, Trundre, and Cadet did, for she felt rather like she was friends with a family who had lost an important aunt. A loss, to be sure, but she knew she felt it less keenly than her companions. From the day of her rescue, the Long Way had offered shelter within her hull, safety through her systems, and a promise of home. There was no way any could repay such debt as they owed the Long Way. And despite the magnitude of these debts, she had also heard that there is some shame in failure, but to fail to try is to live in shame. Thus she endeavored in the little things, to lend a hand with chores, to lend an ear to the weary, to offer as and where she could small delights, such as a poem for Jason, all the gowns for the wayfinder Trundray and the hearth-maker Vi, and now what she was thinking was a livery for the crew of the Long Way. The terrible battle fought by Vincent Primus, the Seeker of Paths, Name-maker Cadet, and Jason George, the Keeper of Oaths, had halted her work on the final touches of these, and man and boys all ceased not in their toils. However, there were 2 others to look after now, and was done for her. So she did for Rose and Penelope. To begin with, she sacrificed her blankets to make robes to cover their nakedness, for they had been denied this dignity and forced to bear other humiliations besides. It had been difficult to convince the pair that they shall not be required to do anything they wished not to do. Isis Magdalene had heard of such behaviors when one is held helpless in the hands of the depraved. But to learn of a thing and to see it are not the same. Here is where she was solid ground among shifting sands, for neither of these women could wholly trust Vincent and Jason, nor herself, Isis Magdalene suspected. Yet she could bear such a small weight. She could speak soft words of promise to them. However, Isis Magdalene could see the shape of their souls. Rose, broken-hearted, wished to fill herself with the carnal desires of the flesh, though what she required was the patience of love. Penelope, the enduring, feared even the comfort of good food, for she believed that only suffering persists while suffering ever persists. They had both once been mighty in courage, like most Terrans, like all good Terrans. But there was such a thing as an evil Terran, just as there was such a thing as an evil Exarch, and she knew both of these truths better than most girls of 11 years, whatever their house and education. Now, though, their might had been crushed down over and over and over again, leaving a daunting fear at even the slightest motion. It is why she kept a respectful distance as she accompanied the pair to the disused vessel in the Corsair's hangar bay they shall use as their private chambers, while all awaited the arrival of the forces of the Republic of Terra and her aligned planets. Jason, the Keeper of Oaths, would not allow them to wallow in despair and self-pity, though. Isis Magdalene knew well. He had many labors to tend to, yet she knew he shall find both a moment and a way to uplift their spirits and rekindle their courage. Such was his way. Such was her trust in his way. All save Vincent Primus, the Seeker of Paths, Jason George, the Keeper of Oaths, and another freed captive, Dr. Siegfried Karg, ever weeping, kept not merely the hangar bay where the Long Way lay slain, with a mere semblance of her old life, and the other vessels used as freed women's private chambers, but the small area around them, and as little of that as they could manage. Only these 3 had both cause and fortitude to venture from their sanctuary. Vincent Primus, the Seeker of Paths, and Jason George, the Keeper of Oaths, had freed 3 further captives in their battle against the Corsairs. But they had come not to be sanctuary in the hangar bay. Instead, they were forced by the cruel nature of their captivity to reside within the Corsairs' vessel's medical facilities, under the care of Dr. Siegfried Karg, ever weeping. Isis Magdalene had not laid eyes on the final 3 freed captives, but she could well see that all who were shaken by their condition. The work that Jason George, the Keeper of Oaths, and Vincent Primus, the Seeker of Paths, did was perhaps less grim. They had not slain the whole of the crew of the Corsairs, and had wounded many and taken them prisoner. They both being decent, this meant feeding them, which meant finding food fit to be eaten, for they were not inclined to share the supplies aboard the Long Way with the captured Corsairs. Things were just so on their first day of waiting. Rose, broken-hearted, and Penelope, the enduring, had closeted themselves in their chambers shortly after taking a simple breakfast prepared by Isis Magdalene and Trundray, while Vincent Primus, the Seeker of Paths, went with Jason George, the Keeper of Oaths, on their first foray for supplies into the derelict, while yet still Cadet Name-maker retreated to the bridge of the slain the Long Way, and Trundray, Wayfinder, found even the smallest tasks to distract herself with. Isis Magdalene chose then to return to the cabin she'd shared with her friends. "Isis Magdalene," by Hearthmaker called from the medical gurney along the wall opposite the bunk beds, and Isis Magdalene was surprised to find that she was delighted to see her freed from the medical encasement device, to have merely her lower body immobilized. "Did you say when that ship was going to get you?" "I think I did not. I have sorrow for forgetting. I have pled only that I was tired from all the things that though I say that as I shouldn't. You were the one hurt, after all." Vi Hearthmaker flicked a rounded ear at her, and Isis Magdalene was impressed with a feeling of mild chagrin as the younger girl said, I slept more than you because of that. This is true, the young lady said. I believe this vessel among the star tides we rage, if memory does not betray me, makes all speed to arrive. 3 or 4 days was what Jason and Cadet told me. Wonderful, my hearthmaker nearly sang in tones of one under the influence of potent concoctions to keep the pain at bay. But I hope you'll come along with me to Manatee Paradise to meet my mom and dad. Why shouldn't you think your mother and father won't come to meet you? Isis Magdalene asked as she began collecting her unfinished library project. And the handheld sewing machine. Oh, no, my hearthmaker cried out of a sudden, her voice like lightning striking the sands. I'm so sorry. I won't be able to wear the fancy gown you have at the homecoming. Isis Magdalene couldn't help herself. Before she realized it, she blurted out, You have become paralyzed in terrible injury, and you make apologies to me as if you have brought ruin to my plans. You too are passing strange, just as Jason is. My hearthmaker's ears laid back flat on her skull, while they vibrated from embarrassment as she explained, I know how hard you worked on it, and it was so pretty. It is beautiful when you wear it, Isis Magdalene said, as she began to lay out Cadet's name-maker's library, such that she could complete it at long last. And I thought that to simply cut away the skirts to make such that they do not bunch up when you are seated in a wheelchair. Or perhaps you shall undergo a surgery that Dr. Clark speaks of before the ceremony is held. When the river changes its course, one goes with the water. I guess so. I guess Jason and Mr. Vincent went off to find supplies. Indeed, they say that we should not leave the hangar bay, for this vessel only becomes more wretched within its depths. Mr. Vincent can speak in such a way that none could argue. My hearthmaker nodded sagely and agreed. Dad voice. My own father can speak sometimes, but not with such a, I know not the words, dadliness. Isis Magdalene looked at her friend with incredulous confusion, and upon seeing the poorly concealed mirth, she found herself in a fit of uncontrolled giggling. That is mighty silly, she exclaimed through her giggling. And true, my hearthmaker laughed with her. However, her mirth soon subsided for her task. But grieving, Isis Magdalene sighed. It is said that the wealthy think themselves impoverished until their wealth is plundered. Yet she knew that she was rich to have such a friend as our little ship. Isis Magdalene fell silent and patted the floor beside her work, with a sudden pang of grief welling up in her own heart. Then, she continued, she works to restore the weapons of battle damaged in the fighting. Cadet also knew his wealth. He speaks not of this, except maybe with Mr. Vincent and Jason. But he knows the poverty of loneliness well. But this is the first loss of love he has endured. He goes to the bridge where he thinks we know nothing of his weeping. And you're in here with me, my hearthmaker accused, as she folded her arms in front of her. Tran must change her grief into things she has made for fixed. It is her way, and she has words to say to the long way that are not for others to hear. Cadet hides his tears, for it would shame him, for others to see them, for others to know that his sorrow cuts through his joy. Should I intrude on this, it should shame him also, as coming upon one in a bathing pool when they have thought that they were secured in their privacy. Well, I guess that makes sense. I've learned much from you, my friend. It is not for me to command their grief, nor to intrude, but to help with the little things, such as this. She gestured to her sewing significantly. A small thing, but it is mingled with my care, my love even, not unlike your cooking, not unlike the effort Strand and I put into cooking as well, now that you have been injured so. A small thing, but we can pick up a small thing. You learned that from me, indeed. Think you, I know not who sang my nightmares away. I was only doing the little things, Isis Magdalene. That minds me, I once shouted at you for something. I was a fool. If you should wish to call me by Isis, and should that mean that we are friends, then I think myself honored. Not friends, Isis. Family. Like I'll do like Jason and adopt you wherever you like it or not. I shall try to uphold this mighty gift, sister. How could one, such as she, replace such debts? It may be impossible. But should any path to repayment exist, it lay in the little things. One small repayment after another. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross, Thank you very much.